Also back on Monday, Barcelona beat Real Sociedad 2-0. They're away to Almeria in a few hours, but Jules' second place seems all but locked up.
Yeah, and it was not the easiest of wins. I don't think they played that great, but with Girona losing on Tuesday night against Villarreal as well, and we know how important it is for Barcelona to finish second, even just, for example, to be involved in the Spanish Super Cup and get a few millions of euros there. They would take everything, really. So if Xavi can take this team into finishing second after the season that they had, and he said again how complicated things were, for people to really realize that it's not going to be a fun summer, it's not going to be a good one either, then at least if you finish second, that kind of softened the blows a little bit of what's coming next.
You referenced him staying before.
Well, no, he said himself that he stayed. But now it seems there's more and more
I don't
again, no?
I don't understand this. I don't understand what's changed. I mean, unless they go to him and they say, please stay because we can't afford to sign anybody else competent and you love the club. But all those other things that he talked about, the stresses, the lack of respect, the family, none of that's changed, right?
No, but
this is what I struggle with.
Yeah, but
I say to somebody who loves
I know,
Xavi.
but he's agreed now to stay. So he's not going to change his mind again and decide because...
I'm just really surprised by that.
That he decided to stay.
I hope he's okay. I hope he knows what he's doing.
I guess
if he's staying just so they can go and sell everything that's worth selling and just leave him in charge of Fermin Lopez and friends, and it has a toll on him, and he continues to get the abuse in his private life and stuff that he took before, just for his own mental health. He spoke very openly and very eloquently.
I know,
about
but he would have known that when he decided to stay and when he had that press conference to announce that he was staying, not leaving.
If you're going to be rational about it, yeah, but he's doing this out of love for the club.
Yeah,
which is a big.
I guess
big
he can
thing.
always change still, but I mean that would make even more.
No,
mess
that would be a mess. He's not going to do that.
Marcelo Cacciardo is the latest name to enter the conversation as Milan's next coach. Gab, are you buying this one? And he's obviously getting sacked at Al Ittihad. So.
No, he just went to Al Ittihad, he got a ton of money, then gets himself sacked. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, oh, look, yeah.
He's still a good manager, though, right? For what he did at River.
You know what? He did everything at River. He had a million chances to come to Europe. He never came to Europe. Then he went and he chased the money in Saudi and was terrible. I don't see any appeal in this. This strikes me as the kind of thing is like his agent saying, like, oh, look, he's going to have to find a job. Hey, does he want to go back to River? Is there anybody in Europe? And then suddenly put him in at Milan. Again, I think it's too big a jump for him at this stage, given the experiences that he's been to. My understanding is it's still Team Mendes pushing Sergio Conceição.
Yeah, of course.
I think there's some people there who still really like Paulo Fonseca.
Yeah.
Who, of course, as you know, was linked with Marseille, met with McCourt and stuff.
Yeah, he's got a Marseille offer.
And then there's Ibra and his friend Mark van Bommel, which, no. So... I don't know. I'm Team Fonseca. If you've decided 1,000% Pioli's got to go.
Yeah.
It's not really a surprise, but because we knew it was going to happen, he knew he was going to get a new deal. But Raphael Varane announced he won't be back at Manchester United next season. He's a free agent. I thought his message was quite eloquent. Yeah. I liked hearing from him. He's the kind of guy like, gee, here's somebody who's a normal person in addition to being a good footballer when not injured. I'd love to hear more from him.
He's one of the best. He's one of the good guys as well. One of my favorite. It's a shame in a way that those 2 years at United were not better. Injury, I think, hasn't helped. He missed pretty much 50% of the games that United have played. And that the team was not a bit better. So at times, I think he showed what a classy player and outstanding player he was, but maybe not enough if you're a United fan. I don't know. I would love to see him going back to France and just finish his career in Lens, where he obviously all started, where he's from, the north of France, and just like finish the cycle there. Or he might go to another league, maybe to MLS with Lloris and Giroud, maybe to another French club, maybe to... I don't see him going to Saudi, for example. I mean, to be fair, I see him going back home. That's what I see him doing.
Well,
but
Lens can still qualify for the Champions League, right?
No.
Right there. All right.
No,
but still, Joseph, come on. Joseph, come on. You can do this. Come on.
Exactly. FIFA, whose Congress kicks off tomorrow in Bangkok on Friday, have set up a working group to evaluate so-called out-of-territory games. What does this mean?
Well, this is the strongest sign yet. They're under a lot of pressure to allow, as we've talked about, to allow leagues to have regular season games outside of the national boundaries. Basically, until this point, a whole number of entities had to sign off on it, generally on an exceptional basis, because you need, the league hosting it. You need leagues, you need clubs, you need a whole bunch of green lights. So the idea is this something we want, and can we create a pathway for it? They're obviously under a lot of pressure from Javier Tebas, first and foremost. The one thing I would say to this, I don't think people have made we've talked about this, like, imagine the Premier League in the US, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't think there's this great appetite for it because the bread and butter is still going to be domestic. I think it might suit some leagues more. Saudi, obviously, is the other obvious candidate. Saudi and the US are the two obvious ones. I would be careful with how they codify it. And the reason I bring this up is, what would happen if, like, Liga MX says, okay, let's have regular season games in LA? I mean, at that point, bye-bye Galaxy and LAFC, because you could pack out 80,000 people in LA, right?
Yeah.
So I think they have to be very careful with how this is done. And the tough thing, I think MLS is easily the most vulnerable to this. And the difficulty for MLS, even though there are legal safeguards they've been taken, there's been talk about them maybe pursuing an antitrust exemption. They have to be careful because, of course, MLS already plays games in other countries, namely in Canada, where there's 3 MLS teams.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. This, to me, seems like a big, big can of worms. Liverpool assistant Pep Lijnders is on his way to Salzburg. Jules, your thoughts? He was seen as, like, the secret ghost in the machine behind Klopp and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, he also wrote a book, if you remember, with about all the philosophy and everything.
The book, I think it's entitled, I Am Responsible for All of Liverpool's Success, not Jurgen Klopp. That book?
I mean, he certainly believes that he's got a great future as a first team manager.
He's done it before, right?
Not an assistant. He's done it before. Not just an assistant of Jurgen Klopp or of somebody else. To be fair, I thought he would have gone for the Liverpool job, and maybe by loyalty to Klopp, when Klopp decided to go, him and the rest of the staff followed. But it was no doubt for me that he would just not waiting for Klopp's next job to still be in his staff. I'm not surprised it's Salzburg. You can start there, then go to Leipzig. We've seen a lot of that kind of Red Bull group process, if you want. So good luck to him. It's a good squad. It's a team that would be in the Champions League or should be in the Champions League with good young players. That I think would be a good learning curve for him, and then see how well he does and where he can go. But I wouldn't be surprised if if he goes well, to see him at Leipzig, once Marco Rose leaves in like maybe 3 years or something like that.
So obviously they had trouble with the two guys who, I forget their names now, but they're random Austrians who replaced Cheslea at Salzburg. People who know far more about Pep Lijnders than me suggest to me that it's a slightly odd choice from the Red Bull organization perspective.
Okay.
Because if anything, Lijnders, I don't want to say he's more defensive or more pragmatic, but Lijnders brought a level of help temper some of Klopp's excesses, over-attacking, over-pressing, whatever. And that really is what pushed Liverpool further to them winning the title and whatever. And so in that sense, maybe not a pure traditional kind of Red Bull type managers as we think of the stereotypes. But hey, look, maybe they're evolving too. Maybe Lijnders coached that way when he was at Liverpool because he was with Klopp and he had those players. And if I was necessary, maybe it'll be totally different elsewhere. Who knows?
FIFA have also all but confirmed that the inaugural Women's Club World Cup will be held in January and February of 2026. But we still don't know where.
Well, if it's January, February 2026, I think we can probably guess it's not going to be in the U.S.
No.
As some people have suggested. Probably not going to be in Europe either.
Somewhere warm, you think?
Do you think maybe there might be some countries in the Gulf who might enjoy hosting this, who might have stadiums ready for it?
Yeah. 16 clubs, is that right?
It looks that way. There's still a lot of detail missing. And again, you got to go sell this thing to sponsors. Guys, it's May 2024. There's no reason why it should have taken this long. They said they're going to do it, right? Yeah. Infantino said they're going to do this like 4 years ago. I really don't understand why it's been so difficult. As well, there's been a lot of pushback on the women's international match calendar as well. We're going to fit this in. I think it's good. I think it's the next evolution. Let's find out. Are these European teams, are they better than the NWSL teams? how much better?
Yeah.
Let's see that. I
It'd
mean,
be great.
this could actually be exciting because
It would be.
maybe this is one segment of the world where the European teams are not so much better than everybody else, right? As will happen in the Men's Club World Cup. Or maybe not. Or maybe we'll find out that the NWSL teams stink relative to Barcelona, Lyon, and City, whatever. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Me too.
More women's football. Should be an exciting final day of the Women's Super League season here in England. More exciting than the men's, frankly.
Not much more, but yeah, because they're still,
Well, it could come down purely to goal difference. So Chelsea beat Spurs 1-0 with a goal from Maika Hamano. And on the last of the season, Aston Villa host Manchester City. Manchester United host Chelsea. Both teams are level on points. Chelsea's goal difference plus 47, City's plus 45. This is echoes of Aguero 93 minutes, 20 seconds.
It is, and on paper you have to say that Chelsea going away to United is the toughest fixture, more than City going away at Villa.
Reportedly, United are 5th in the table and Villa are 6th or 7th.
7th, I think, yeah. Spurs.
But United have just won the FA Cup.
Yeah, exactly. So they will have a bit of that momentum going.
Or hangover, you don't know. Mary Earps.
Well, I mean, it would have been like, we thought this was all wrapped up before when Chelsea lost away at Liverpool, and then City were 1-0 up against Arsenal and in control of that game. Conceded 2 goals very late, 89th minute and 92nd or something, to lose that game against Arsenal, which meant that Chelsea could then come back with that game in hand. They did, and now it's an incredible last game for what's Emma Hayes' last game in charge at Chelsea as well, after 12 years and all those trophies, all those titles. And I think for City to win this title back after those years where they didn't and where Chelsea was so dominant will be very special as well. So we'll have to see.
I'm curious, given that United are kind of in the Spurs position right now, in the sense that they play Chelsea. So if they want to hurt Man City, and they lie down, are we going to get scenes like we got, at the Tottenham Stadium, where
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
Like,
but you're right. It's a reverse. Like it's a.
Or does it work differently in the women's game?
No. It'd be very similar. It'd be interesting to see what the crowd says. Fenerbahce presidential candidate Aziz Yildirim met Jose Mourinho for 2 hours last week. He says that he wants him at the club, especially if he wins the elections, of course, but even if he doesn't.
Yeah, I think there's 3 candidates for the election. They're going to finish second. I mean, I think potentially they could still do it. They're 6 points behind Galatasaray. Yeah. Although I don't know if they do it on goal different, but whatever. They're not going to.
It's very unlikely, yeah.
To finish second, they'll be in the qualifying rounds of the UEFA Champions League. Might that appeal to Jose Mourinho? Listen, I think at this stage, after Roma, he got the big crowds in the stadium and the hero and the passionate fans. He would certainly have that in Istanbul. Let's face it, he's also somebody who tends to revel in chaos, right? And that has kind of defined Turkish football, for better or for worse. I think it would be a fascinating story. I would want to make regular trips to Istanbul to go and witness this. I don't know if there's. I mean, what do you think, Julia? Is there a broader story of kind of like the level of clubs that would go for Mourinho at this stage of his career?
Yeah, I think right now it's only Saudi clubs, which we know are after him, and Fenerbahce really. There was no. I think he tried to get involved in the Bayern race, for example, of shortlist if you want, and others, considering how big the summer is going to be for managers with all those clubs back in Italy as well, who need a new manager. Right now, there's just nothing. There's no market for Jose Mourinho outside of Turkey and Saudi.
I still go back to this. I think where he could do a good job if he wants to have a limelight. Obviously, Fenerbahce still gives you a limelight in Turkey, but it is still. It's a big country.
And for them, it'd be a massive coup.
And it would be massive. I think the next step after that, I think international football would actually really, really suit him.
Yeah, I agree.
Celtic beat Kilmarnock 5-0 away to become champions of Scotland. Jules, they've won the title in 12 of the past 13 seasons.
That's true, although this one was, I thought, very, very interesting season because Rangers, especially after the arrival of Philippe Clement, pushed them all the way, and it looked at some point that maybe Brendan Rodgers would not do it, and that Rangers would get that title. And instead, they obviously had that massive game away at Ibrox, which was an incredible second half, and they showed steel and really, I think, a lot of character, Celtic, in this season. So well done to them. They've got a cup final to come to play on May 25th against Rangers. So we've got another Old Firm derby to come up, which they've all been great. And this one was for the first time a different format of the league, in the sense that you had like a playoffs as well for the title and the European places, and then to go down, which makes it also very interesting. So well done, Celtic and Brendan Rodgers. Gab, Ligue 1 still doesn't have a new TV deal for next season and the two after, and some people say it's because Kylian Mbappé is leaving.
Yeah, they're wrong.
I think they're wrong too.
I mean, the reality is that the league said, oh, we want a minimum price of 800 million euros, which, if you look at the value of television rights, people need to wrap their heads around this, right? The Premier League, down. Premier League rights today, Premier League, the most successful product, their domestic rights are less today than they were 10 years ago, right? And it's the same story around Europe. You do well if it's flat. They knew that Mbappe was leaving before. Yeah. It's not like this is a surprise. I just think leagues have to get used to the fact that television rights from legacy media, like the one we work for, aren't going to be worth as much as before, because habits are changing, because the way people consume games. There's still a tremendous amount of interest in football, but there's other ways to do it. And I actually think if you look at the crowds in France, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the players coming through, this whole League of Talents concept, it kind of works. There are exciting players to watch, and people are into it. So I think it's a physiological change in the industry, but it's not something you can go and blame on Kylian Mbappe. And by the way, Kylian Mbappe can always just go to his ex-boss, who I believe happens to run a television network, say, hey, you want to fix this? Put some money on the table, Nasser.